Hello, I'm Linley Good and welcome back to Money Live and Insurance Innovators special broadcast series, Embracing the Embedded Finance Boom, sponsored by Salesforce. Great to have you back with us. Now, over the last few weeks, we've discussed how embedded finance is transforming the financial services industry and what it means for you. If you missed the last two episodes, do make sure that you go back and watch them. We've had some brilliant guests, including Digital Challengers, Railsbank, and Cover, and the head of open banking at NatWest, and our expert panel, who are back again today, have tackled some fundamentally important topics so far, including managing the disintermediation risk that embedded finance presents, also staying ahead of the competition in a fast-moving marketplace, and taking advantage of all the opportunities through innovation and transformation. So lots to cover so far, lots that we've seen. Now we're joined by CoverGenius and Deutsche Bank to talk about how we can make embedded finance a reality. And of course, our expert panel are back on hand with their insights. But before we kick off today's discussion, a quick reminder that we also want to hear from you to share your experiences and your thoughts. Very simple to do that. Just use the live chat box on screen. Okay, well, let's start by welcoming back Louise Carlander, Financial Services Industry Advisor at Salesforce. Hello, Louise. How are you?
Hi, very nice to be here again. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Great to have you with us. And thanks very much to Salesforce for sponsoring today's episode again. Couldn't do it without you. Well, let's start off with this question. This episode's all about the real world practical steps that we can all take to fulfill the promise of embedded finance and also thrive in an API economy. What crucial things should we all be thinking about?
You know, I think that one of the things we should think about is what to share, how to share it, and when to share it. And I think that, it's great to have an API strategy, but I don't think everything should be an API. And I also think that, you need to make them easy to use, easy to maintain, so you don't create additional burdens for the organization. And also be sure that you know which APIs to share and when to share them and to who. And I think there we can see a difference between the insurance companies and the banks. The banks have been forced to share things, which so far the insurance companies haven't, with PSD2 and open banking and so on. But at one point, I think it will come back. Who is going to share the other way around? If you're going to have to give it out, when are you getting things back?
We're about to hear from Deutsche Bank and CoverGenius about their experience in banking and insurance, of making embedded finance a reality. In your experience, what challenges and opportunities are really out there for banks versus and insurers? What great opportunities are waiting for us out there?
I think for insurers, maybe the competitive threat is actually bigger because, insurance is not a high-touch product, while the banking is, in many cases, many more products that are being disrupted, many different services, and also a little bit more of a high-touch point. But if you succeed, it's the wet dream of both the insurance companies and the banks to be further down the chain of the consumer's daily life.
So, but being very much part of the consumer's life is what this is about, isn't it? So being so relevant, and perhaps the question of disintermediation that we talked about last time and being invisible maybe isn't what you'd imagine would be the way to go. But of course, if you are part of that relationship, you are in that chain somewhere, there is great value for you as a business.
Absolutely. If you could be in that chain when the consumer buying something and you are a click of a button in the same buying experience, it's so easy for someone that's buying those favorite pair of jeans to say, well, it looks great to buy now, pay later, pay in 3 installments. It's a very nice touch point to be in top of mind of your consumer. And then long term, it also might be, you buy these jeans, you buy now, pay later, but at the same time, if there's a little bit of another button in the checkout saying, so you are buying something for £98, would you like to add £2 to your savings account?
We have to move on, but always great to kick off with you. So let's get straight into a conversation with Graham Dean, Head of Insurance at CoverGenius. Graham, hello, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Very good indeed. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Graham Dean, VP of Global Insurance Solutions at CoverGenius. For those of you who don't know CoverGenius, we are the leading insurtech for embedded insurance. We work with some of the largest digital and e-commerce brands, such as Booking.com, eBay, Amazon, Wayfair, to sell insurance embedded with the underlying service and product that our partners sell. We're operating in sort of 60 plus countries and all 50 US states to pull this together. We've been around since 2014. So great to see you again.
Very good to see you. I have one or two policies myself, so I know you very, very well indeed. Great to have you with us. And secondly, we have Yaris Henson. Hello, Yaris, how are you?
Hi, great. Thank you.
You, as you know, are the founder and co-lead of Deutsche Bank's API program. Just tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I founded the API program at Deutsche Bank back in 2015 as a way to open our data for partners to build products for our and their customers. We started on the retail side of the bank, but now we also have products for corporate customers. And we have around 50 partners connected in both spaces that use our data to streamline their processes or offer new products to their customers.
Great to have you both with us today. Lovely to have you here. Okay, well, let's continue the conversation around embedded finance and the API economy. First of all, Graham, how for you can embedded insurance take the customer experience to the next level? What do you think around that?
Yeah, so we've actually been doing quite a lot of customer surveys in the last sort of 12 months, and it's actually really interesting and frankly sort of reiterates sort of what we've always believed and thought. But really it comes down to the number one driver for the reason why customers will buy insurance in an embedded sense is for convenience. That really is the main driver. It's simplistic. It's also fundamentally we believe that people and customers want to buy from their brands that they're already trusting, from the experience that they're very familiar with. And so embedding the insurance at the point of sale really is in line with that. So, some of the other stats that you might find sort of interesting certainly in the sort of fintech and banking space that, I think it was 45% of customers are highly interested in buying embedded insurance through their banks and their financial institutions. And so that's fairly high, right? Compared to, potentially they were buying from traditional insurers direct in the past. And so
in some ways there you have it as well, isn't it? They're actually interested in buying insurance. That's always been the problem. It's been a grudge purchase. Maybe it's been, yes, it's covered you, but actually, of course, we haven't been that interested in our insurance policy. Now, when it's attached to a product that you want to buy, I suppose that's the key.
Exactly. And that experience is there, as I said. So, from the buying, you might buy something on Amazon with one click, right? Then the insurance also needs to follow suit right through to the customer experience at the end and having the claim done, having the claim paid. And really, even if you're getting a claim paid or denied, the experience should still be the same. It should still be good. You should still know what you're getting. And I think, this is really why we're in this space. So.
Good news. Yaris, what about for banks? How can APIs and embedded finance, do you think, transform the customer experience in banking?
Yes, I think it starts with the understanding that no customer says, well, I want to use an embedded finance product or I want to use a financial product, but I think it is like, I, as a customer, my life evolves around the big moments or the small moments in my life, and I want a problem to solve. I want to maybe buy something or invest in something, right? And I think APIs and embedded finance in particular help to bring financial products and services right to the point of need. So like Graham's example, where you buy something and you immediately also get an insurance, right? You can think of the same for financial products, that you get a loan on top of the insurance. And if you do not only think about financial products, but also other industries, the insurance industry, but also automotive, any other industry, if they open up too, and you bundle the products and the services, then I think we can offer really contextualized services for our customer. And I think this is what really will increase the experience of customers.
Graham, in terms of the API mindset, if you like, what are the big challenges that you find at the moment working with large institutions, working within your business? What are the big problems at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess still the main challenge, which will still exist for the foreseeable future, is speed to market and making sure that we can innovate and develop new products and solutions. You know, the insurance industry is very well known to be quite slow and archaic. So, you know, there's obviously the insured tech wave, and APIs are able to kind of start changing that a little bit. But then we're still relying on some of the traditional insurers and the traditional reinsurance and regulations. So that's not going away. We're chipping away at it, I think, but that's still probably the underlying challenge to get out quickly. So.
Absolutely. And Yaris, what about you?
Our challenge really is to bring this API and establish this API mindset, this API first mindset within the whole company, to build reusable services that you can combine like into different products, even if you do not know what your service might turn out to be used in 2 years. And perhaps our developers and the technology side is more familiar to why APIs are so important, but not so much the business side. So also to make the business people understand the power of APIs and how it can improve them to have a much better speed to market, build new products much faster. So I think that's a big challenge and a success factor and to scale up the whole initiative.
Yeah, and to both, Graham, first of all, historically, you know, to be customer focused hasn't been that easy, or perhaps hasn't even been of great interest. It's been pushing your product out rather than thinking about the customer first. Now, by identifying customer needs, I guess you are becoming customer centric. Do you think that is where this all takes us, to be more customer centric, to be more relevant, therefore to be more useful?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you know, when you mentioned sort of the legacy or traditional roots, you know, that they would you know, a traditional insurer certainly would have a hypothesis, come up with a product, build the product, and then try and sell it or try and market it, right? But having the customer-centric approach is obviously flipping that and then saying, okay, so who are the customers? What are they doing? What do they need? And then building the product off the back of that. And then using the experience on how are you going to offer it? How are we going to embed that? And so by the very nature of the embedded and the customer-centric approach is not developing the product until you've got the experience worked out. So.
Yeah, Yaris, I suppose I'm being very harsh by saying, yeah, we didn't think about the customers in the past, of course, because otherwise how could you sell the thing? But do you think that this will raise attention, raise awareness, engage people more?
Definitely, because I agree. I mean, in the past, it was more like a straightforward process where you deliver like a project, right? And then the product is out there and then you stop caring. Yeah. And I think now what embedded finance and this evolution really requires is to embrace this change for the whole organization, to see that partnerships are essential and that you need to understand the context in which, for instance, in our case, financial services are used in order to come up with a really good solution. I think, and to not only stop when you deliver the product, but also to continuously monitor the feedback and maybe develop a new product out of it in the future. But I think it's a continuous circle, and it's really an effort for the whole organization to make this happen.
Well, staying with you, Yaris, what key capabilities do you think that the banks need to make this all happen? It's not just about the technological capabilities, it's obviously about the mindset, it's also about the skills. What things need to be in place, do you feel?
Yeah, I think first, I think it's really this mindset of cross-functional collaboration. So it's no longer a business unit that throw over some requirements to the IT guys and then they develop the product, but it's that you need to have both in one team and to work together. And you need to have people who act and think as product managers, in the sense that they can understand the technology, can talk to developers on one hand, but on the other hand are also capable of dealing with potential partners. Come up with a viable business model and everything. And I think this is a skill set that we need to develop on top of the technology, obviously, that is the foundation of everything. Yeah.
Graham, I mean, you've been working on this for a long time. I mean, nobody's perfect. There's continuous improvement to be done. But what do you think the change has been at CoverGenius that has allowed you to be more customer centric with those capabilities in mind? What have you put in place, or what do you still need to put in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably sort of two quick things come to mind. So number one, it's sort of testing and being and then experimenting with product recommendations and pricing recommendations and then testing and iterating and so on and so forth, and having that as a constant fluid kind of motion to make sure that you may not get it right at the start, but also it's an optimization process that just continues to get improved upon over time. But I guess secondly is also for us in a sense of versus a traditional insurers, we've got to be very nimble, and we've got and our partners expect us to be nimble and innovate and change and making sure that we're able to adapt to the world. And like last year with the pandemic sort of hitting, I'll give you a sort of a live example. Right in the middle of the pandemic, we were sort of talking to Skyscanner, and we're sort of looking at traditional products, but actually we had to adapt really quickly and pivot and go, we need products that are actually relevant to today's market, what the customers are needing, and making sure. So we built a whole new kind of bundle of insurance products, which included different COVID coverages and so forth. And you've got to be quick to do that. And I think we were sort of the first globally to be able to do that. But, the traditional companies probably lack that ability to do it quickly. And I think that's what really is important. So
Yaris, you were nodding during that. Yeah, the ability to react, the flexibility, also the forecasting, the ability to forecast, very important.
Yes, so I really like this example because it could also be an example taken from the financial industry, right? It's to adopt to the partner. And this is why I really feel it's nothing you can do from without a single unit where you have this understanding, but where you need different people. So in our case, for instance, when we started to expose our data, one thing we learned from potential partners was that they do not want to spend 6 or 9 months discussing, negotiating about a contract to access this data, right? And they made the experience that it takes a while to cooperate with a traditional bank. So we sat down, involved all the different parties from legal to compliance to come up with a really short and quick onboarding process. And today it takes us only 2 weeks to onboard a partner. And I think this is one essential bit in terms of building this trust for a corporation, right? But on the other hand, it's also the other party understanding why things take or are a little more complex, because at the end of the day, you cannot change the whole world and spectrum of a large company.
Just a quick one on skills, Yaris. The hunt for data scientists is well known. Everyone was doing that for many years and still is doing that. But actually, what other skills, what sort of person do you need in your business to be able to interact not only with the customer proposition, but also with your tech?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's perhaps a tough question because we just introduced the agile working methodologies to on a much broader scale to the organization. And one thing we realized, the position of the product owner is really difficult to fill. And most of the time, you rather find people coming with a technology background who then adopt and learn about the business side than the other way around. And I think we are looking for people with a technology mindset. And I think this is really key, and maybe something we can learn from all the technology companies, because they are doing this quite well. They understand that technology is a core piece of what they do of the business model, but then you need to take the second step to make a business model out of it.
Yeah. So Graham, what does all of this mean for financial services? What needs to change? What should we all be doing to get ready for this new mindset, this new way of working? Also the people. I mean, we want to adjust rather than wholesale change.
Yeah, if I come from our perspective of how we work with financial companies, but also the insurers for where we work with them from an underwriting and capacity point of view, it's understanding that what are we trying to achieve, and then actually working out who does what in that process, and what does the partnerships look like, whether it's a distribution partnership or from a sort of a capacity partnership. Both of them need to understand that it's probably not as frictional as people would think, and certainly from a capacity point of view, we're giving access to distribution to sort of these sort of legacy financial companies, and otherwise they're going to have to build the technology, they're going to have to build the customer-centric approach and all this sort of stuff, which takes time and it takes money. So I think if they can understand that there's probably a quicker way to get into this space, and it's working with, I think, companies like us. I think that's probably the quicker way forward, rather than thinking you can do everything which really it might take them 5 years. So
yeah, Yaris, there is a revolution here, but we all have to evolve. You know, we can't just change everything straight away. What do you think banks need to do to stay ahead, to have the capabilities in place, and therefore to have your eye on the prize, which is to be an incredibly relevant business in the future?
Yeah, I would say there are 4 key factors to me. One is to lay the technology foundation, to go beyond maybe the scope of what regulation requires you to do, to offer premium APIs, but at the same time also build this internal mindset of API first, of building reusable services that you can combine like Lego bricks. Second, to focus on the developer experience, not only from the perspective of having a good developer portal, of easy to use tools, but also to create this internal development culture, that you have internal experts that you can connect to the partners. And the third factor is around the partnership experience, which is really essential. And I think we have to understand that, at least in our case, open banking is a long-tail business model where you have a lot of small products, very specific products, but you need to adopt this. You need to have a way to work and understand the context, how financial products fit in. And for this, you need to have product managers. And the fourth factor is maybe the most important one, is about the customer experience at the end, for whom we build the products. And I think to stay ahead of the curve will require to not only think in our financial bubble, so to say, but also to talk to other industries and to start to connect the dots to build contextual products.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much to Graham and Yaris for taking time out and speaking to us today. Thanks very much. Great to meet you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
cheers.
Yeah, thanks to Yaris and Graham. Let's welcome back our wonderful pundit, Louise Carlander from Salesforce. Great to have you back with us. Now, from our Salesforce and MoneyLive survey, it also found that 84% of senior industry executives think that AI-driven autonomous portfolio management, underpinned by a really holistic customer view, will lead to customers having much more appropriate and better value financial products in the future. Do you think the industry currently is acting quickly enough or thinking about this at the right time?
I think so. I mean, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I would say absolutely not. I think the industry has been one of those, like the frog in hot water that didn't really see that it started boiling. But the pandemic has really changed, the way we think of things, and also the way I think financial services firms have realized how they are going to be able to service their customers. And therefore, I think that we see, nowadays a lot of things happening. And I think that the innovation that's happening right now is really taking off and really showing speed. And I mean, I think we can see that there's a lot of moves to the cloud and to improved consumer experiences and so on.
What areas do you think AI does lend itself to in terms of embedded finance, or in terms of data transfer, or in terms of understanding trends? Where can AI have a good presence in this debate?
I mean, I think AI, as it evolves and matures, can have a lot of impact. And I think a lot of, understanding and also, finding the right data, AI could be great in that. I think also AI for financial services could be really good at helping the financial services firms to identify important life points in the consumer's life. And I think that's where they really need to become better, because if I call in on my birthday, it would be great if they say happy birthday. It doesn't cost them anything, but it's a cool little thing to make me feel a little bit more special.
Yeah, of course, if you depend on an AI to wish you happy birthday, the tune can be a little bit flat, Louise, but good idea. Okay, well, let's now go to our expert panel for the third time. First of all, Jana Winter. Hello, Jana, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Very, very happy to be back.
Great to have you here yet again. Jana is the Chief Information Officer for Generali UK and for Generali Corporate and Commercial. She's a strategy and technology expert with extensive IT experience, and she successfully bridged the gap between business strategies and IT organizations. And Jana has an established reputation in leading and delivering large-scale transformations. Great to have you back with us. Second of all is Dr. Evangelos Avramakis. Evangelos, how on earth are you today?
Very fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you back. Evangelos is the head of digital ecosystems R&D at the Swiss Re Institute and an internationally renowned advisor and thought leader in insurance. And his particular focus is on forward-looking market developments, digital ecosystems, omni-channel management, and innovative business models. Great to have you back with us. And last but not least is Peter Lee Johannesson. Peter, how are you?
Good. Great to be back.
Great to have you back. Peter is head of strategic partnerships at DNB, and DNB is the largest financial institution in Norway and second biggest in the Nordic region. Peter's team execute partnerships primarily with fintechs, but also bigger corporates, including Google. And Peter's team also run the DNB Accelerator, focused on venture investments and key accounts for DNB partners. Great to have you all with us. Well, Evangelos, kick us off this time. We heard from Yaris and Graham about some of the steps that need to be taken to turn embedded finance into a reality. Well, how do you think ROI can be demonstrated in order to make investments in API capabilities? How does that work?
Yes. So first, of course, you need to make sure that it is a business opportunity. So you're not investing in something that doesn't make sense. So embedded insurance, all this kind of new and business environments that are happening. So we see some potential. So it makes sense to invest. The second is the value proposition as such needs to be profitable. Otherwise, if you will scale it in either direction, you won't make money. So it needs to be profitable at the beginning. However, you might need to change the value proposition over time, the architecture, the model, that might change also the profit expectations on the model, especially when you try to partner with different parties around the different environments. So this might increase some complexity where the profitability area might be impacted. So it's a learning thing over time. And I'm not sure that you can tell at the beginning that the ROI looks exactly figure X, Y, Z, instead of this is a little bit the area we'll think this is going, and then you need to adjust over time.
Yeah, just briefly, I mean, the whole ROI concept, which has been with us since the very first year of business ever, it can limit because you're looking particularly at the financial aspects of it, but perhaps there's other value from customers or from the goodwill, from the brand. So does there need to be a slight shift in what ROI means?
So I think so far we measured very much in product lines and profitability by product lines, and now the terminology went into customer lifetime value, and now the lifetime value will be spread all over different interfaces or sales channels. So potentially we might need to rethink our terminology, how to measure that. So profitability is for sure an important one, but it won't be the only one. So customer experience is very close to profitability, so there's a direct correlation there as well. And I think we will learn from time that we need to adjust other KPIs going forward.
Absolutely. Maybe to Jana, how do you think organizational structures and operating models need to change to get ready for the future of embedded finance? What are the perhaps previously thought of as soft changes, the skills that you have in the business or the way that you deal with your partners and customers? What structures have to change, do you think, Jana?
I'm going to take actually a step back a little bit into the previous part of the conversation. Sure. So our IT strategy is divide, conquer, and integrate. So coming back to the subject of API and integration, if you want, it is absolutely paramount. So back in 2019, we started a 4-year transformation. Now we're January 2022, the last year of that transformation. But the first year, 2019, was all about identity management and integration, because it has been one of the most fundamental building blocks of how we do the divide, conquer, and integrate. So, and actually at that moment in 2019, we even redeveloped our approach to API, ESB, API management, etc. Because we genuinely wanted a lot of that flexibility, and we keep talking about flexibility in these conversations. That flexibility needs to be, in technology terms, as much as possible out of the box.
Did you have embedded finance in mind, Yana, when this 4-year strategy came into being? Because that integration clearly is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'll pick corporate and commercial as an example. We're dealing with multiple brokers. For us to be able to provide that connectivity to the brokers and then brokers to their customers, API integration is our fundamental way of doing it. And again, we have this concept of, not just concept, but implementation of multi-tenant architecture. Because we need to have similar architecture for multiple tenants, whether it's brokers or multiple businesses, and the actual integration is always is with API, and it's one of the best policed subjects. So how we're changing is to say we can allow flexibility within the teams, whether we have application, data and analytics, other teams, but especially in the integration, it's in our setup, it's a separate IT team, and it's one of the best policed areas because we can cross over the wires in a very bad way if we don't have enough oversight.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit later in the conversation, I'll come to an example where people expect miracles of APIs, but I'll reserve that for a bit later.
Yes, I'll remember to ask you because that sounds really good. Collaborations, partnerships, Peter. We talked about this. We've talked about this throughout the episodes, but I wonder in terms of skills, the spirit of innovation. What do you think needs to happen next in terms of that, and the people that you bring into the business, the people you work with?
Yeah, I think it's two-sided. So to make this work, it's both a mind shift that has to be done. So you have to work with the ones that have the right mindset, and the other one is the technical part. Yeah. So what we see, definitely when we talk to different partners that approach us, we would like to integrate your service into us. It is very difficult for them to understand the complexity of the bank actually, and the spaghetti and all the stuff that we are dealing with to actually be able to integrate, and also the mindset of the leaders for the integration. Yeah. And many of the cases, of course, when you have, coming back to ROI, which you discussed earlier, when you go into this partnership, you then have to share the revenue with someone else, which and maybe sell the same product, but in another surface. So for us, it's been important to choose the partnerships where we see that the pie grows bigger by entering into it, or we address a new market. But I don't think that luxury will last forever. But for now, we are in that forefront.
I see Evangelos smiling there. So why the smile, Evangelos?
Because at the beginning, you hope that you can connect or embed in an environment, so you agree in terms and conditions, and part of that will be the profit sharing, if you will. But if the competition is increasing, you get challenged by exactly that term, right? Yeah. So over time, you commoditize. You need to be very, very efficient to offer the service, but also the let's say the broker fees to some extent might be challenged as well. So it's a natural game of what we do.
We've been through the early process of open finance. The benefits of APIs are broadly known, but I wonder what the opportunities are to really innovate and monetize APIs. I'm going to throw that to Yana with the idea of you telling me what the miracle that people expected was.
Have you come across the notion that API is becoming a verb?
Yes.
So the expression is, will API so-and-so? Whoa, hold on, what do you mean? Right. So imagine that you have a really, really complex system, legacy system, very complex. It has multiple screens, it has multiple integrations, it has complex databases, and someone comes and says, I really don't like the user interface. I'm going to create the user interface in a completely different business system, and then we'll just API the old legacy system. So we're talking about ROI, but actually my Bible is TCO, total cost of ownership in IT. So I always calculate things and say, whoa, let's not go and API everything that we can lay our hands on, because then it becomes very expensive. And especially if you expect that you have a very structured, very well developed old system, and you will API it and you will put a new modern interface on that, it can become prohibitively expensive. So I know that we're talking about if you want the level of granularity. And again, this is something that we have been resolving literally for the last 20 years since the turn of the millennium, because you can go and buy a big core processing systems, but if they don't provide a low level of functionality, you don't have the chance of composing and orchestrating different services. And now specifically with the embedded finance, I mean, if I have a huge monolith system and I don't have any way of cutting into it and APIing at least elements of it, now I started using that as a verb. If my systems don't lend themselves to that, then I have some no-go areas. But and it is why sometimes we need to realize where our legacy systems are. Try not to API them, not to redevelop them. But we always need to have that design of how we're going to, what is the level of granularity for the next 15 years.
So who do you need to understand that you can't just API that? It sounds like people are saying, well, we'll just make an app for that. It's almost the same sort of concept, not the same complexity. But I wonder, people, we all want to innovate. We all want to find the opportunities for APIs if the product and the process works within budget. So where do you think those opportunities really are? Sure.
Especially with APIs, sometimes the fewer, the better.
Okay.
Because you need to be very, very intentional in what you want to encapsulate with the APIs. Yeah. And I know that we're talking about various levels. You can have the front-end APIs, you can have the orchestrating APIs, you can have the back-end APIs. But again, you need to be very, very intentional, because it can become exactly that. But back to Peter's example earlier, you can have the spaghetti integration with APIs.
I'm visualizing spaghetti at the top of, locking systems into place. They've got to be interoperable. Peter, does that make sense to you? Does that ring true?
Yeah, it does. It really does. And this is the everyday life of being an incumbent and legacy bank. But I think the biggest opportunity, the way I see it, is within the loan space. So for us to create an API that we can connect to different surfaces and give out loans. And we don't have a Tesla, so we are doing the Tesla loans in the Nordics. It works very well for us. And I think it's a lot of other surfaces. As long as you make it generic, scalable, it makes a lot of sense for banks.
Yeah. Evangelos, what do you feel in terms of the resources and the skills that are needed to get ready for sort of a more API-based set of platforms, or perhaps even if, as Yaris says, you need to really focus on what you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, it's just expensive and kind of a stupid process to try to just create APIs for everything. But what resources, skills should we be devoting to this?
So first of all, there's a kind of new business understanding. So what is the kind of required business service that should go through this API and deliver value at the other end? And it cannot be that almost everything. That was actually the point, right? Because if you publish everything, or if you push everything, then you more or less reinvent the business model just in a different environment. So the question is, what creates value on the other side, and how much complexity you need to involve into that one? And apparently every different platforms might require, or banking incumbent might require, just a different framework and frame set in terms of data flows and stuff like that. So you need to balance out what is meaningful today, but also a little bit tomorrow, and potentially you need to modify your API models going forward, because the other side will require much more information, data, so you need to steadily actually do that. And in the very end, it's about standardization of businesses. Otherwise, the APIs might be difficult to crack. So it's really a learning thing. At the beginning, might seem very easier to do, and over time, the complexity just increases. And the question to you, how to balance out costs and benefits.
Yeah. Can I add something very quickly?
Please do.
APIs have been in use for the last 50 years. So back to Evangelos's point, it's not the technology is there. I mean, obviously we would like to get more out of the box. We don't want to always go and develop from the ground up, but APIs have been there for the last 50 years. So it's a tool. How do you use it?
So only as an example, we came from, let's say, to aggregators, we send Excel spreadsheets at the beginning with the premiums, right? Per car, per premium, something. And now potentially we might have APIs that do more or less the same thing, but the complexity has increased over time. So going from Excel to APIs is a huge shift in that in the meantime, and it just increases the complexity going forward.
Absolutely. So, Peter, what lessons have we learned in those 15 years or so? You know, what lessons?
5-0.
Oh, 5-0. Okay. Well, in principle, yes, I suppose that's true, isn't it? Yes. I won't take you back 49 years, Peter, but what lessons are we learning?
Yeah. No. To also answer to Jan's question, I think one big shift for us, at least as an incoming bank, has been the introduction of PSD2. So of course we had APIs for several years, but now we were actually forced to expose these APIs to others. So we actually have started a journey, I think, on the embedded finance in a way, with the experience from PSD2. We used a huge investment. We shifted from having external teams like using consultants to have in-house development of these APIs. And I think that's it's positioned us very well to take a position here, and been maybe the biggest shift from the last years within this API development.
And a final question, what do we need to do better to make use of the API economies, the platforms that we have? Jana, first of all, and I'll just very briefly, what should we be doing better? What do we need to really work on next, do you feel?
We need to be very intentional, even by category. Are we talking about our brokers, distributors? Are we talking about customers? Are we talking within the business? So again, that whole thinking of think big, implement small, and always leave it in an island of stability, because especially with APIs, if you try to throw everything up in the air, it will take you many years, a lot of money, and it will be still a mess. But just be very intentional and even do it slice by slice.
Yeah. Evangelos, last question to you. With this 50 years of dust settling, what's the opportunity, the next opportunity do you feel in terms of what financial services could look like, where we go from here? What is the exciting future, do you feel?
I'm really, really very optimistic that, insurance and financial services will be even more relevant going forward.
Right.
But it will need to adapt it to the new customer needs to some extent. So this will require for us, from the way we provide our services and products through APIs or non-APIs, I mean, that's another question, that we steadily can adapt to this kind of new needs. And I think the speed of adoption will make the difference.
Absolutely. Well, Jana, Evangelos, Peter, thanks very much for joining us for the last 3 sessions. Been great to have you with us. To round off our discussion, let's go back to Louise Carlander from Salesforce. Louise, thanks for joining us again. Look, we've talked about a lot, but what advice would you give to businesses that are looking at this now? What steps can we take to head in the right direction, to look at our technologies, our systems, to get embedded finance right? What can we start to do now?
I think as the financial service providers, talk to your big customers, talk to your small customers, see what they want, how they would like you to, be the service provider that they crave and that can help them in their business. There's so much you can do with the data that you get. You can do, e-commerce financing for your SMB partners. You can help your large corporates to be the underlying technology for them to be offering, buy now, pay later services on their own books or with the help of your balance sheet. You can, as big insurers, you insure a lot of companies, they have customers. How can you work together to improve their customer experience and sell their customers the right insurance, for example? So I think there's a lot you can do with improving your technology, but while you're doing it, make sure that you have your customers aligned so you can partner with them and become more relevant.
There are many questions and the answers can be quite hard to find. So it sounds as though you really need to start planning. Quick final question. Are there common pitfalls? Are there common things that we should all be trying to avoid?
I think that you really need to make sure that you know why you're doing something. And it needs to come from, the need of solving a pain point for the consumer, rather than you thinking it's cool to build the product.
Yeah.
It needs to be something that, enhances the life of the corporate or the consumer, instead of you sitting on your little, sitting at home at your desk thinking, oh, how can I come up with a cool product?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that there is a use case.
Great stuff. Well, thanks, Louise, for joining us for the last 2 episodes. It's been great to have you with us. And a huge thank you to all of our contributors, our keynote speakers, panelists. Of course, thanks also to you for tuning into the series. And we'd love to hear from you. So please do send us your feedback by completing the review form on the webpage. Plus, if you've enjoyed this series, we'd love it if you would share the page and spread that news. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you with us. Until next time, all the best. Take care.